At the endless darkness and cold, Lam Chi turned his will to panic, as if being surrounded by seawater, his body was filled with helpless feeling. Suddenly, a light blue religion suddenly hit Lam Chi between eyebrows. Lam Chi was like a nightmare that awakened the same person in the same way, sitting up, his mouth and breathing air. Lam Chi only felt that the current brain was chaotic. There were many strangers that appeared, but did not wait for Lam Chi to bring this memory to carry the brush. A long time of football, big and small, the fire of the fire had appeared in Lam Chi in front of him. Lam Chi was directly threatened to the mute to catch, immediately escaped, forgot, looking at the fireballs and welcoming the fire. But the fireball immediately had to hit Lam Chi's face when, to a deviation, from Lam Chi in the ears screaming, in Lam Chi not far away on the ground exploded. From sculpting to the pit and foreign hole to burn weeds to see this powerful fireball was not the same. At this time, Lam Chi reacted here, rushed from the ground to crawl up, began to evaluate the fourth situation. Discovering himself is in a completely strange local, he himself is currently not very high on the mountainside, the four sides are empty on the grass, the real vision is empty, except for himself with the trunk of a spiritual tree that is not large. The trees are disruptive, there is no tall trees. This tree is disguised as a truly bizarre appearance, like a capitalized H, from the intermediaries a symmetrical medium is missing half. Lam Chi is still the first time seeing such bizarre, not from many times, only feeling this tree around the situation is not suitable. Revoking his eyes, from a young age on the mountain slopes down to look back, Lam Chi was fascinated by the enchanting scenery. The slope of the lower mountain is a piece of plateau expansion, the upper plain see it is a huge pile of red villas, the four-sided villa nearby has a great football field surrounded by white walls surrounded, although it is a bit far, but Lam Chi is still able to feel this large villa and luxury price. The upper plains scattered there were several piles of rooms, from appearance to see just a little normal place to live, with the great villa completely not a rank. A small river drill from Bin Wen on the one hand flows towards another place, Ha-Tu river banks are neat crops. Currently approaching the twilight, the temple is clamped in the far place of paint, falling to a Duhui religion, using the entire plateau to cover an additional metallic layer. Lam Chi saw that it was fascinated when he was discovered on the slopes of Li himself less than 10 meters of position, there was a small female comedy staring at herself. Little female comedy is not old, estimated to have only 7-8 years old, dazzling blonde hair, summery into ponytails, more and more lovely, like Hongbao thatch with two eyes, worthy of sophistication and sophistication, with a small figure, along with a noble flower of costumes, it is completely a resurrection of Taedalsk. Lam Chi just felt that this little girl was familiar with her eyes, and the part of her own determination was the first time she saw this little girl. At this time, in the original brain chaotic memory of himself, Lam Chi discovered that it was basically not his own memory, this body is not himself. From this body, the owner of the memory, Lam Chi knew that he had not been on the planet, but he himself now in the world called Lap Mong mainland. Lam Chi tried to recall himself because of what he went to this place, but Lam Chi in the end of the memory was only gushing roar and darkness. Lam Chi shook his head to choose to face reality, looking towards himself compared to himself a little dwarf a little small female comedy. This body is the owner named Folahan Duke La, but this small female comedy in some meaning to say is himself Sud, his name is Ailulu Special Limak 2. The eyes of each other facing each other, everyone has not opened their mouths to talk. The light breeze blows through two people with hair and hair, according to the shaking wind, the time seems to be a quiet moment here. The former owner of the owner named Folahan Duke La, his parents did not know what the cause was, in the original owner, only 6 years old, immediately brought him to entrust himself to his friends, also the present standing in himself in front of the female comedian Ailulu Special Mac 2, then it was 2 years, always living until now, straight to himself. Withdrawing the thought, Lam Chi once again brought his head in the direction like a doll, Sud. The female student has a few timid parts, no one who is staring at them will not adapt, the tears between you are slightly wrinkled, the right hand also depends on the opposite direction towards us, along with the immaturity, it is easy to hear the homonyms, the lulu in the mouth seems to be muttering, there is a similar point on the middle of the teenager, Lam Chi only feels funny. It is, according to the rules and accelerating, Lam Chi blatantly discovered that Ai Lulu Li's hand in front of it, but there was the same type of object curve in the air with self-braided, AIAILE finally suspended when, the air silk was also braided, extremely similar to the world drama, the magic of the battle magic also became bright, the central battle had the same light, the same point could not speak in the same point. Each other like casting fire from the French battlefield violently shot out, straight to Lam Kai's face. Lam Chi winked to be aware of the upper fire, and this is also a great lady. Lam Chi this time, but there was no idiot standing on the spot, hurriedly tilted to avoid flying to the fireball, but this time Lam Chi clearly felt the fire bridge to the heat waves from himself, the face fluttering, moreover Lam Chi heard the fire burning the flavor, Lam Chi instinctively touching himself in the hair, directly touching under a dark smell. Terrified very as a result, the owner of the memory once again appeared, Lam Chi discovered that this name was Wipold the mainland, but with the same central drama, there were some similar parts, the mainland was filled with a warm magic power, a bit of a clogged person who could absorb this magic power, becoming a magic power. But in front of this person, Sud, when he was born, he awakened himself and he was born naturally, that year, the 7 year of the 7 years became a magic stage, everyone in his mouth was no less than the genius. Lam Chi knew that he was now eating thanks to beans, wanted to eat and could not be guilty of this lady, but as a male man, he also had himself self-respect, so he did not dare to say anything and looked at Ai Lulu. Ai Lulu looked at the figure a bit struggling for Lam Chi, Australia, probably Fola. There was a little angry in the mouth, how to avoid this time? Nangon? Do not avoid waiting for president? The corpse does not know how to play fire? Lam Chi in his heart said. Aile saw that he did not have his own back, you wrinkled a few parts, slightly serious, if you know how to escape, because what the first time the moment does not know how to avoid it, if it is hit, it will be very dangerous. Originally, you also know dangerous Kia did not even hesitate to fire, as expected of women in the world, so that the legal person to solve the creature. Lam Chi base could not tease us and could not escape the principle, wanted to turn around, but just turned around, the brain transmitted to a stunned battle, more and more fierce, Lam Chi just felt the sky and earth reeling, a staggering immediately the ground island. Ai Lulu looked at himself without paying attention to himself, and turned to go, Ai Lulu Hoa immediately came here, lovely Lulu suddenly discovered that he had to go to Fola, standing in place, his body began to shake, then immediately the ground wasland. Aile stammered terrified, used to overcome the same speed of the speed to enter Lam Chi in front of him, about to fall to the ground of Lam Chi hugging into his chest, preventing Lam Chi falling to the ground, Ailulu now discovered that Lam Kai's chest had fainted. After that, Ailulu slowly brought Lam Kai's body to the grass on the grass, bringing Lam Kai's head to the knee first, using a complex type of silent eyes that looked in front of Lam Chi. Lam Chi once again woke up, shaking himself to shake himself, making himself the spirit of Ton Tin Tin Tin, then from the ground to crawl up. Afterwards, Lam Chi discovered himself to a strange situation, no matter what his memory was still the memory of this place was not impressed. I will not go through. Lam Chi mumbled up the floor. Lam Chi raised his head to look up to the air, in the red sky on a bar like holding hands, big and small, whirlwind was not slowly moving. In the sky there is no temple, the four sides are abnormal, at the feet the same mirror-like ground also has a slightly thin layer of water. No matter how this place is like a paradise. Lam Chi was in the heart of Cao. This place is not a paradise. Lam Chi behind you Lin answered Tan. Lam Chi is like a traumatic cat and cat back to the body. This is not only because suddenly comes from behind the sound of people, but it is itself that it is clearly in the heart of self speaking, but behind the other one does not know who is the same person who will read the same mind to answer himself the problem. Turning Lam Chi to discover himself in front of the person standing with a pale face and dressed in the same kind of teenagers, Lam Chi was really panicked, retreated back a few steps to stand firmly, then carefully observe in front of the teenager. At present, Lam Chi has turned back to the planet himself, a 17-year-old and newly high-year-old body of the young man. In front of the teenager, the current Lam Chi is approximately, the 5 officials 22, there is also a silver hair head, just a beach of a set of discharge, not from making Lam Chi sobbing, so good teenagers, only regretted rewarding many points, immediately gray hair. Suspension of the other people ugly, the duty to bring you to this place is an important thing you want to teach you. The teenager's head seriously said. Lam Chi reacted here, emitting himself suspicious, what is the important thing? Where are you? Where is this place? Lam Chi went up was a round of Tamlin. The teenager's head was a bit hoarse, the main position is the most powerful gods of the most powerful system, in the past years and years of recently, the recently built a body, wanting to go ahead of the owner, this assistant becomes a hegemony. Come on, you are also the duty of the host, the duty is responsible for bringing you to foster the talent, only regretfully impulses and the other force to bring the duty of serious damaged system, although the basic function is still in, but the majority of the illegal use. The faster the silver of the teenager spoke faster, in the sound filled with fatigue again, Lam Chi once again engraved the sense of affection for the body. Later, the decision could not regularly reward himself, the teenager was the car traces. The teenage silverhead aggressively glared at Lam Chi, glanced at him, maybe he wanted to say the important situation, nor did he blame Lam Chi in his heart, continuing himself and his own sports treatment, intending to support you to prevent karma. Lam Chi finished listening so long, also considered transparent in which morality, in other words, you are currently the same level with the waste, right, I want you to use anything. Lam Chi sprayed cao. Doing. The boy finished hearing anger, followed by a sigh, also, the duty immediately used the final force to support you to practice. As soon as he finished, the teenager disappeared on the spot, and again appeared when he was in Lam Chi in front of him, moreover using a finger to stay in Lam Chi me first, the duty of the name is Li Hui and then. Without waiting for Lam Chi to react again, a stream of water directly into Lam Chi in his mind, Lam Chi again lost consciousness. Lam Chi felt that he was sleeping for a long time, and there was very little sleep in the front so comfortable at the moment. Sleeping in the meantime, the former owner of Fola was a memory, like a cinema in Lam Chi in the immediate future of the news, Fola owned through the entire after all, depending on, it was never too relaxed to relax with leisurely, so long over for a long time. Lam Chi was intensely hungry for the province, Lam Chi was wide in the bed, the room position was just using the eyes to see immediately could feel it lavish. Lam Chi did not know how long he fell to the ground, just from the window to the outside to see, discovered that the air soon became black, the blue moonlight hanging in Van Jian, Lam Chi did not exist because the bizarre moonlight felt curious. Former owner of Fola possesses memories, Lam Chi has witnessed more than once, so, about Wai Lap Mong, a few knowledge bases, Lam Chi soon understands, just looking at many times, then recovering his eyes. Lam Chi decided to resolve the important new urgent, that was Dai No himself said. Lam Chi looked around a room, discovering the front bookshelf on the book table launched a tray of monstrous shape. But Lam Chi knows that it is all the mainland of the mainland, which can be used to eat. Therefore, Lam Chi for the fruit table to drink. Lam Chi discovered this fruit all the delicious sweetness, the taste was very good. Being in Lam Chi rice, the brain is also in the same way. Because of not being discovered by people, the body was controlled by others, Lam Chi calculated from the beginning to use Fo La this owner. Thus, it is possible to avoid the appearance of someone who calls my name, but I have no low-level reaction. Because in the mainland is true to exist, there is a bit of energy that can completely control the body. Lam Chi, Russia. Are not. The present must be Prussia. Fo La but did not think he was considered as a spirit, then granted sand. After that, it is to add this world of knowledge, but do not think that there is a sentence of memories that can be listed high and sleep, thousands of sand. The former owner in saying that there is only lo, an 8-year-old corpse, knowing items are finite. The possibility of someone who will say what, Dong Tong cavalry. 4. The present is the cavalry, the other grows up now, is stupid. Therefore, one hand a fruit, in the mouth of the clog to the fullness of the dong, the corners of the mouth of the fruit of Fo La fruit, glancing on the bookshelf, big and small, the thickness of the bibliography, decided to just have time to read on the bibliography. Fo La recovered his eyes, took a sip of fruit in the abdomen, but he still wanted to resolve the problem. A tray of death on the abdomen, Fo La was surprised to discover himself at the most eating only 4 full parts, even in the planet in the right way, the young fire was the same, so he could eat, no need to say the present clearly miniature, want to eat again so much, Fo La felt bizarre. It is the present urgency is still making eating points. Fo La once again in the search room, the intention to find a little can eat food, maybe looking for a little sound, the room outside the door to the footsteps. But being very specialized in searching for Fo La food, there was no discovery, moreover the order of the lawless person to solve the crawl to the bed. Straight to someone pushing the door, Fo La turned his head to come, only seeing a fluttering body seductive through the black and white diphtheria, looking at Don Trang release the beauty of the female singer standing still at the slow door without entering. The 4 eyes looked at each other, the maid on the face of the protest was a bit complicated, startled, horrified, and it was difficult to understand. After a while, the new maid erected on the face of the protest, using new my sound to visit Fo La, Tun Fo Fo La young master, looking at him, he woke up like that, so he was alive, so he was highly excited. After saying that, the maid continued to look at the bed of Fo La. Fo La just felt a shy neck that bounced in his heart, thought to restart once the Holocene human life. The mainland has many races, including except for foreign humanity, not from the other side of the racial intelligence, especially the delegates must mention the spirit of the spirit and the ghost, the 3 are the current mainland the most powerful force of the race. But the remaining humanity corresponds to the 4 empires distinguishing the ruling, the most powerful of which is the empire, in the royal empire of the Huangtan Emperor, the entire mainland of the main strength of the Academy Royal Family Academy. Located the director of the director is scary strength, the only reigning the entire continent is the more the god of magician. In then law the empire, there is a quantity of aristocracy, of which the most famous hope and the strength of that is the corresponding charisma of the family. Special Lai Mak Tu clan has a royal empire of the emperor. The current homeowner, is also the rules of the father and father's special virtues. Special Lai Mak Tu, especially Germany not only has the Duke of the Identity, each year has himself fixed fortune, moreover there is the family of commerce, the scope of the entire continent. Special virtue of death, charismatic mother, is a great powerful power of the magician, also in the royal monk of the academy. But they were ruined, when they were born awakened and then born in the world, 7 years old, when they became a magic of studying things, using nearly 100 years of the young woman, except for the external rules, special hybrid of the family. The secondary family also had a lot of people who have a natural comedy, although she could not be able to use Lulu, but she could also use genius from CU. In such a great strength in the clan, naturally not lacking in my LE but can be a deputy. Currently, Fo La in front of him has such a maid, Fo La in front of this maid has a very impressive deep, because he is a girl who is the current person in the family of the family where the school is in the Y-land school, the usual place to handle the big place in the big body. Fola in the memory of her body does not meet her to rest at the moment, so the owner of this maid is respectful. Y-land Don Trang stood at the door, looking slowly from the bottom of the bed to the lower crawl to Fola. His face became a bit serious. Tun fo Fola young master, although the current is in the evening, moreover no outsiders, may not need to tie noble maintenance, but also cannot always kneel on the ground. Fola was ashamed from the ground, crawling up, laughing and laughing. Why landlady, Tien was so late, you didn't even rest. Why Lan laughed and said, thank Fola young master, I have a good night's sleep every day, just now is not interested in the moment. Why Lan looked at Fola, continuing to say, Fola young master, you have been in a coma for 3 days, the lady of the great lady who cares about the situation, not only has the expertise to treat the magician because he watched the disease, but the fact that I tried Fola Logo young master. Wai Lan looked at Fola with a glance, then stopped for a moment. At the beginning, I also worried that Fola was the young master's body. In the hearing of him in the room to the next echo, immediately ran to consider, too much present to see. Fola young master was like there was no thing, moreover like the previous coma wanted the spirit. Wai Lan Italy looked at Fola. Fola was shocked to think, will not be seen what the clue. Fola Tam mentioned his throat. At this time, Fola's stomach made an extremely lined voice. This did not directly express himself because he would visit the bottom of the bed. Fola again died again, in case of becoming a little embarrassed. It was still Wai Lan first to open his mouth, as I think not fulfilled, I now go because Fola young master prepare food. After saying that, Wai Lan turned to go outside the door, just came and the door stopped his footsteps, turned around and said gee he did not need to stay under the bed next time. Fola currently has only one idea, one head stabbed to death. My Kai Nhi Fola seemed to be the world of new activities lost trust, like a similar salty fish lying on the bed, the eyes lost brightly. It is not for a moment, a crowd of dresses dressed in young people, the neat team from the door, the girls in the hands of the tray lift, the tray is to disperse the scent of food, each of the food is decorated like a package of artworks, making people unable to lower the mouth. Wai Lan knew Fo Truong finally entered the door. Wai Lan gently clapped his hands, possessing a maid, seemingly taking the same practice, and bringing the tray-shaped food on the table, then backwards, 100 step back and back. So far only, Fola has not even encountered such a big beach because he ate a meal, so Fola showed a bit of limbs, but had a life before this life and a whole life of the memory. Fola real quickly reacted here, went to the front dining table to sit down. Because in an emotional hunger, Fola also did not enjoy the tray like the work of food and food, but the handle was not familiar with the fork, a little new cutting the table of food, and then bringing them to the mouth. The mainland was filled with warm power. On the mainland, the biological ownership had suffered a magic force, so even if it was normal, vegetables and fruits were all lawlessly compared to. But like a hybrid of the family, the nobility, in the activities of eating the food, the more of which is the upper product. So, no matter what fruit is still currently in the use of food, each eating a sip of Fola can feel that there is a neck of heat saved into the abdomen, then in the whole body circulating, like in the nourishment of the meridians, it is miraculous. Fola brought a sip of food in the back of the back, satisfied to hit away. But surrounded by maids soon saw his eyes wide open, because the department prepared the food with 10 tables, although each of the amount was not large, but the other was also the 5 adults a meal used, but they were so fragile at first glance, the whole corpse was completely destroyed. This kind of affair said that the possibility of no one would believe that no one would believe it. Even the Wai Lan maid was a bit blankly, looking in front of her eyes empty, for a long time to work around the maid to collect lumps. Fola soon discovered himself unusual, thinking that it was just a coma that was too long, so the request to eat a little to be able to recover, but now it seems that it is not so. because eating is really too much, has surpassed ordinary people to explain the scope. Facing the maid group is like watching monsters. I am not very clear, Fola had to laugh. But the current Weilan Fotruong frowned, as if he was dedicated to wondering what, so he did not see Fola protesting. At this time, the door transmitted to a battle of Tan Tui brought with him the sound of sound transmitted to, more than midnight, each one cannot sleep, running to the owner of the room is what to do. Hearing the look back, only seeing the pale pink body immediately, the Lululi's nightgown was standing at the door, the long-haired needle wore on the shoulder of Ngoc, maybe it was because he had just awakened to sleep extremely smoothly with a pale pink face, like a pink weapon flashed in the eyes carrying a ray of fire, watching carefully in everyone's room, but when looking at sitting seriously in Fo La's case, the eyes were so happy, but the eyes were so happy. The blink of an eye, immediately disappeared. At this time, the major of the medical school opened his mouth and explained, Tun Venerable Lulu Dai, disturbing you dreaming, sometimes sinful. Pausing a little continuing to say, Fola young master tonight, said he was hungry himself, so because the young master prepared food, Fola young master had just finished using rice, so disturbing the lady, it was so sorry. After saying that, the maid of Weilan school immediately bowed his head, not giving away his teeth. Fola Tam said, how not, responsibility to push to us on people. Anyway, the amount of Prussia law young master did not calculate this search, only Weilan did not need to bring himself to the bottom of the bed to look for the situation to tell the Lulu, he was okay, but he did not think at his house in front of his face. So Fola for Ai Lulu laughed ashamed. Ai Lulu did not have Li Mao Mao Weilan, immediately went to Fola in front of him to stop, softly said, such a long coma, you still need to rest, if you eat well, you have to be perfect to lie in bed, no need to go around, there is a matter of saying that the maid is okay, transparent. The Prussia dared to say a non-self, so nodded. Ai Lulu now just brought a female deputy to leave. Based on the memory owner, the original owner is not like How to Love Lulu, the cause is many, but most of them are because he hates himself being harassed, the owner hated the rules of the rules to have a complete family, had a parent, have people praised, have no trivial body drift. But the Lulu treated the original attitude, is also not salty. Two people will sometimes have a minor. Therefore, Ai Lulu tonight showed too much attention to the attitude, making Fola a bit suspicious, also made Fola a few conjectures, but followed Fo La's head, feeling this and himself did not have too much relationship, because before was before, the present is the present. As long as you and my sister, the rules of the relationship is okay. Fola just slept a great sense, had all, it was not surrounded, but it was more than midnight, nor did I know what to do, so Fola from the bookshelf selected a book, hugged him on the bed. Ai Lulu brought a female deputy to the back door, causing the maid to return to rest, then he himself prepared to return to his room, but not how far away, the back transmitted to the maid Lan Ian's maid, Ai Lulu Dai lady. Aile turned his head at a glimpse of a bit of seriousness, then brought his head back, there is something wrong immediately. The major school of medical school in Tun revered a sentence, is, Ai Lulu Dai Thursday. Later, bringing Fola today at night the food spoke to Ai Lulu, moreover, he also said Fola in eating first, the ability to eat a tray of fruit. Because Weilan first entered the room when he discovered Fola room the whole room disappeared. This news really granted Lulu and brought a lot of deep into it, because the Lulu and Fola lived for 2 years, Fola Luong had a natural food to eat and Lulu naturally was clear, wanting to eat suddenly so much violent, no matter who would feel unimaginable. Ai Lulu was quiet for a long time, Weilan also quietly stood in Ai Lulu next to, at this time, Lulu suddenly turned around to Weilan and said, you go down to tell the other side of the maid, not to bring tonight to tell any outsiders. Weilan Nu Vice Truong respectfully replied, it is, Ai Lulu Dai lady. Wanting to retreat when and being called by Lulu again, "Why Lan, you come because I wear clothes?" Why Lan, the female school, finished listening to Lei Lulu, Ai Lulu, the lady, currently the sunrise has a time, can also sleep and feel. Aile heard and shook his head, "No need, I could not sleep, moreover now there is a situation that you want to handle." Why Lan female deputy school knew herself many useless words, had to go back to the room to return to the room. Fola room. Fola was sitting on the bed, seriously reading from the world of the bibliography, this book called Magic holding with techniques. Originally, because there was no friend, very few people talked to each other, so the vast majority of time were treated in the reading room. The light from the bookshelf was full of bibliographies, and could see how much the owner often read the amount, so although it was only an 8-year-old year, the upper man was aware of itself. This is to help Fola a great grace. Because the world of literature, Fola basically will not, if intentionally going to school, it takes a long time. Therefore, Fola is still a reality of the owner, making himself a lot of vehicles. Magic held with the technique this book carefully meticulously explained, getting the magic power must be exactly the exact manipulation of the magic self, along with the senses of the scenery around the wavering magic, and a few new magic who learn to hold techniques. The magic power is the construction of the mainland. The most chi, in the past a long time ago, was initially gaining the magic power that people were called by people chosen by the world. These people were pushed towards the royal wound, so they could use the magic of people once for the noble. This also became a symbolic aristocracy. But later, more and more ordinary people also have magic, moreover, they can use magic, have suffered the society of aristocratic pressure that cannot be acknowledged this truth, allowing ordinary people to learn magic. Even the national opinion when there is a royal academy every year, they will receive a popular nature of the people. But, he was strictly prohibited from studying magic. This is also the key aristocracy. Slave is no one worth mentioning, until now a rule is still retained. Moreover, according to the affordable words, it is allowed to study magic, but still be despised by the aristocracy, because in the mainland, there is a clear decentralized class. Each person from birth to destiny is like being planned the same. Straight to a legend appeared. He was the incumbent royal family of the Academy of the Secretary of the Secret Interest. His body was popular, since its inception. He showed and then scared of the natural magic. The legend: he has two kinds of natural magic, moreover, he can use the time and the space of two rare magic. At the age of 20 when he becomes a super magician, later in a short time, he has a breakthrough again because of the magician, but now in the only humanity, the more the magician of the magician. The magician ranked by learning stuff. Trantian. Zichduang. Super taste. Minhu. Having used the force to retreat hundreds of thousands of Ma tribes, protecting the empire and humanity in the field. Is possessing humanity. As a lot of popular comedy in the heart of Quang, also making nobles more or less changing to the popular magician attitude. Fola then was 100,000 people across the Vietnamese army, nor did he calculate because the organization was glorious, nor did he think that becoming a new continent. Just think Benanan is going down. No matter what the previous life is still the present, this is all the desire, but it is really clear that the previous life did not fulfill this aspiration, and the other person to be the Prussian of this aspiration even more attached. But humanity still has a habit, which is the strange thing for curious things, so Fola once again looked in front of the letter, starting to rely on the face of the description, feeling the starting scenery around the magic power. First, only the magic power can feel the scenery around the middle of the magic power. Fola does not know himself or does not have the magic power. Ordinary people will use a kind of felt stone to experiment a person or not to have magic power, just need to bring the ghost in his hand, the ghost of the magic. If he lights up there to get the magic power, the opposition is no magic power. But the ghost of the brightness determines the strong and weak magic, the beauty decides the attribute magic power. Magic power has a lot, often seen, feng, fire, earth, tui. Fola did not know himself or did not have the magic power, because he had never had too much experiment, but, it was not difficult to feel around the magic power, moreover just need to feel around the magic power, so he had the magic power, so Fola hugged once would not drop the mental flesh, starting to feel around the magic power. First, close your eyes to relax the whole body, then make the spirit of concentration, go sensing around the mobile atmosphere, the feeling of transforming space, finally tasting and the situation of harmony, making yourself a world of a part of a part. Fola opened his eyes, lighting into the eyelids was the front of the Li Huian then system of fantasy space, the upper space was still the same as red on a bar with two swirls in the circle, but Fola felt that the two vortices were like changing around. Fola thought that the other was the system that brought himself to summon himself here, so, looking around the four sides, there was no discovery of Li Huian then the shadow, at this time to remember, the other fire set itself as if they wanted to sleep soundly, so not Li Huian then brought himself here. So the problem comes, how to enter yourself. Fola thought for half a day and did not think carefully, so he did not think directly, began to seriously observe the four sides, want to search and go out the method. This is like the same glasses of the space, glancing at the eye without seeing the head, Fola try you a direction and for a long time, like on the island around, because the four sides of the circumstances can say the same as casting. Not knowing how long, Fola became dumbfounded, definitely directly lying on the ground, starting by Lan. The top of the head was discovered that the two vortices were still at the top of the head, there was no one who acted and changed the position, immediately made Fola pay attention, Fola seriously observed, but because the cup was too far, it was not clear. Fola Thuan resented, if it is a little bit, it will be good. But when he finished speaking, the sky two vortices like hearing the human language, directly flying to Fola in front of him, bringing Fola so scared that from the ground jumped up. But the whirlpool also did not continue to approach Fola, but with Fola to maintain a relatively the distance stopped, there was no other movement. Fola regained his composure, took the initiative to go towards the whirlpool, discovered the whirlpool not had to be motionless, and was leisurely spinning. Fola was filled with suspicion, because the whirlpool was like listening to himself the same order, from the high place to the bottom, Fola calculated as experimental, experimented with content very simple. Fola raised his head, for the whirlpool of the broth, the tongue's mouth set in the original position. This time the swirling water directly disappeared on the spot, Fola opened his eyes wide, hurriedly looked back, the two whirlpools were still in the upper position, seemingly unprecedented. Fola once again made the vortex in himself in front of him, but this time Fola did not make a sound, just in his silence and saying his own thoughts, the swirling water went to Fola in front of him. Fola currently has a large idea, but it still needs a bit of experience. Fola closed his eyes, in his heart, leave this place. Opening your eyes again, but coming back to my room. Fola immediately highly inspired but waved his arms and legs, with the original method to show himself excited. Following, calmly Fola, looking inside the clock room, discovered that in the other space, so growing up, in real life but only through 5 minutes, this made Fola again assert his own thoughts. The other miraculous space must be the spirit of space. Fola glanced beside the letter, the content of the content, the true person who did the same situation, immediately had the opportunity to open himself the spirit of the world, looking from the magic Luke with the central magic power, this could be faster than the speed of the magic to restore the speed, but the similarity only the magic stage could do this point. The remaining central magic power is to have a magic power that can use the key magic. The central magic power is equivalent to the starting point of the magic power. If there is no central magic power, the person who is illegal from the foreign world supplements the magic power, also bringing this magic power to turn themselves into a part. Fola thinks that he himself can go into the spirit of space, not because he himself has a gift, but from the other, the conscious of the Huian and Li system. The same system parasitic with the world spirit owner. I have been mentally sent by Li Huian and try you in the space, so I can easily enter the spirit of space. It is a truly a devilish logic, Prussia not banned from showing off his self saying, as expected of me. But there is also a problem, that is the so-called central magic power. I guess that the two whirlpools are the central magic power, but in the book, there is no central magic power, just the central magic of the central magic power is the attribute. Disagreement of the beauty is also disagreements, the magic power decision is the attribute of the attribute. But ordinary people only know there is a type of magic attribute, so it is only possible to use a magic, naturally only one central magic power. Fola corrected his mind, a little excited to conclude, self-consciousness is not without the central magic power, but many one, in other words, he can use two types of magic properties himself. Fola is now aware, the original is a bit disdain often the owner, but there is this level of natural magic, but because of whatever the main owner, he does not know, on the contrary, he is easily discovered by himself. Could it be that the fake pig was eating tiger meat? Not right. Recalling the original owner, Fola discovered that the original owner really did not know that he would have such a great magic. In other words, in the owner who took over his body when he himself was not discovered by anyone who discovered it because the original master was not awakened. The ordinary magic wake of the most awakened the most time was at the age of 10. The age of 10, even though she had a natural magic, it was difficult to become a magician. Summarizing a little, the central magic decided that one person or could not have the magic self, the magic of Tianfu decided the future of the magic speed to cultivate, but the remaining magic power was the decision that one person who did not use the prerequisite himself, wanted to become a magician who lacks something. Therefore, even if this magician is still a little, the same as 10 middle people to the end only one person can become a magician. The original owner used 8 years of magic time was not awakened, but deliberately took care of himself a day, the magic power awakened, perhaps because he himself was going back and forth here, so he himself was innate. This is not reasonable, this is not reasonable. Fola directly denied this idea. So now it is possible to explain yourself using only one day to wake up and then magic power is only one, the other is the other dish of the Huian and Li system? Fola recalled the first time with Li Huian and to talk to each other after a finger, then immediately felt himself in his body as if something was opened. Fola was now aware that he was opened and cultivated. Fola felt that a fist, not only helped himself awakening the magic power, moreover, the body of the shackles was like being declared, because from eating rice later, in the body, there was a force of force everywhere, then the force will slowly be absorbed by the body of the tablets, finally deposited up. Fola feels that his body has never been good, can run a few marathons. This is all about the other, the unannotated system of Li Huian then, it seems that he must be the other fire a little bit changed a bit of a look, at least he could not ask him to be dishonest or useless system, probably a little bit of use but not many systems. And Fola is very satisfied with himself once again. Li Huian then started his name, feeling himself in some aspect is still very talented. Fola recovered the thought, continued to read at the end of his hand. Currently, he has become a magician prerequisite, so the next step it is familiar to hold yourself magic power. Not knowing how much time again, Fola matched the books, jumped down on the bed, stretched out, but in the eyes filled with the new things eagerly wanted to try. The head turned outside the window, only to see the horizon has emerged pale needles, the sky of every row like the cloudy tide also spread a bit of drunkenness, carrying the pink point. Early, I could not wait for Fola, now I only thought of finding a perfect place to taste myself just learned knowledge, but Fola in my heart just had such a locality. worried about being discovered by a maid, so Fola crept out from the room, afraid of emitting a little sound. Of the Fola passed through the complicated trouble of the corridor, entered the large gate of the park when it was discovered that this villa, was himself to say when he witnessed to the luxury of the villa. At that time, Fola immediately thought, if you can stay inside, it is good. Do not think of yourself but still in the inside.